Yes. Just following this example from Germany, where you can make a business card, PhD, minimum 8 months, and then a science PhD. In Finland, we do only science PhD. And nowadays, the requirement of publications is one thing that as you mentioned, and within science publications, it is that today most of them are really weak. I mean, there can be 20 people in the list of authors, and PhD student jumps in at a certain moment, and it is not sure that his or her name will be among the 2 first or 3 first authors, but yet he or she is doing a lot of work in the research group. And well, this is what just came into my mind, and I don't use too much time. I passed for it. Okay, thank you.
So if I start from what's the goal of doing a PhD from the student perspective, it's to learn to do scientific research and critical thinking and so forth. So I think publishing a paper is an integral part of becoming a scientist and learning how to present your results into the larger public. But then again, what Raimo was saying is that if we think about an average paper in the top journal, it will easily take 5 or 6 years of work of many different people to publish such a paper. And if we want to keep the quality of Finnish science high, I think it's important that the research groups are able to publish in the top journals. So of course, this brings a conflict into the doctoral training. So I think we should start thinking about alternatives to the publication criteria, and I think the idea of a monograph could be implemented. But then, of course, we need to have other ways of assessing the progress of the student and whether he or she really has the qualities and capabilities and knowledge that we want our PhDs to have.
I would like to start with the comment, because you showed the statistics of health school, and you had this long tail. I know where they are. They're the clinical scientists. They make theses in part-time, and that's the way how they do it. They don't want to take 4 years off from the clinic.
So this is net time?
No, it's not net time.
Okay.
And the goal is to finish the PhD in 4 years net time, and they are doing it. And we are following this, and our statistics for those who are making the thesis in full time is only 4 or 3 years. So I don't think that it's a bad situation. I have been to Norway as an opponent in Bergen 2 times. I don't go anymore. They have a strict 4 years rule. Both of these theses wouldn't be acceptable in the University of Helsinki.
Okay.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to take our ideas of thoughts a little bit backwards to the year 1995, when the first graduate school system in Finland started. I suppose that at that time the numbers would have been totally different than they are now.
Sure.
So there's been quite a lot of improvement since then. But there are a few things that I'd like to take up here. And sure, it is a bit difficult thing to think at the same time the quality and quantity of the papers, for example. And nowadays, I think that universities and professors are more and more emphasizing the quality of the papers instead of quantity, which means that probably if you have one major in your PhD thesis, you are able to give your dissertation with that paper. So it's quality and quantity, which is important thing. And then in Finland, probably the requirement of having so many papers in our PhD dissertations is that we think that in PhD studies education, we are giving the PhD graduate the possibilities and competencies to be an independent researcher. But in real life, the education continues even after that. And therefore, quite many of those competencies and know-how, knowledges, expertise, they can gain after the PhD graduation. So during their postdoc time, are those means that they can use in the future in their career, professional career. So therefore, I think that probably we should at this point also concentrate on postdoc training and take that part of our researcher training in Finland.
So I would take perhaps a different point that hasn't been yet addressed by panelists. So I think in terms of the processes a PhD student goes through, coming to the university, and you think about what you can do with a PhD, you do some research, and then suddenly there's some sort of bureaucracy that has to be taken care of as well. And I'd say certainly in terms of the timeline of whether you can finish in 4 years or 5 years, you're quite slow at the tail end of actually finishing the PhD. So you have to go, at least in our faculty, you have to go through several faculty meetings, and the spacing those faculty meetings and getting reviews and so on is actually, that's taking up about 6 months of the process. So if we would consider the time from when the time to which the student actually submits the thesis for review, then that would bring them down to about 4 years. So I think we could do some improvement at this tail end to speed up that process.
Yes, I have 2 points at this point. First of all, not to make any excuses. That's a fact that our PhDs do take somewhat longer. But I agree with Hannu that in those numbers, in the health science numbers, it's clear that there are the part-time PhDs and the full-time PhDs. And this clearly also relates to funding. Aarhus, the example from Denmark, I don't know about Aarhus exactly, but in Copenhagen, their numbers are exactly reversed to ours, considering the sciences and arts. And the reason for that is in Denmark, they require basically that you do have the full-time 4-year funding in order to do your PhD. Okay. And this is of course a different point of view, whether we require the funding or whether you actually have the right to do your PhD regardless of funding. So it's also a political decision how we take that up. And then as to the age, it's of course our PhDs, when they come in as PhD candidates, they are already older than in international comparison. So that of course adds to that thing. And then when you're older, you have a family, you have different kinds of obligations that might prolong that. But it's also whether it's the time or what you do with that time. If it's just the time lost, or if it's time that you're doing something else on the side that gives you skills in order to be able to get employment and improve your career after your PhD. I think that's also the point. Where do you spend that time?
First I'd like to thank the Biotech Club for setting up this session. I think it's wonderful that this is at the ChemBio event, and I think that it's very positive that the students have built the Biotech Club. I was at the MIT reciprocal visits of the Biotech Club. I think it was fantastic activity, and therefore, and also to set the discussion a bit, involve a little bit of crowd also. So I'd like to first ask, who are the doctoral students in the room? So hands up, all doctoral students. High up so we can see. So the majority of the people are doctoral students. So the next thing regarding this length of the PhD, I think that the most interesting thing you should be worried about is that do you get the skills or the CV that will take you forward on your career choice. So here's the next question. If you have two, so kind of ask about your career goals. I'll give two options here. Because of the biotech club and because of the ChemBio event, so which of the doctoral students see it as their primary goal to be employed by a business, a corporate, a startup, or having your own company? Hands up. So there's, I would estimate that there's less than 5% of the hands were up. And so the next question is, which of the doctoral students have as their primary goal of having an academic researcher career? Hands up. Okay. So there's a lot of doctoral students that don't have any goals. But even so, I would say that the majority, we got a lot more hands for the academic career, and I think that this is still the situation. And in that way, I think it's very important to think if your goal is in the academic career, then I would say that the most important thing is to learn skills in science. And if you think about what is the right time for the PhD, it's actually learning the skills. And currently, it's arguable whether it's good to have PhD early or late if you think about the scientific career, because for instance at ERC it's much better to have a late PhD than an early PhD. And for business of course it's different, but anyway, so this was just to kind of encourage also looking at from the point of view that Biotech Club was initiated, and so the skills in that regard are also important.
Elia, for you, I have a specific question because you come from a different background and you are not in hard science in a daily background. So from the ministry's point of view, is time spent by every PhD student, which time is money, sure. So is that time of concern to the ministry at all? Do you think that the time extra taken by the PhD students within Finland is of concern for the ministry, for it to be controlled, for something to be done about it?
About this, we don't want to control what's going on in the science community, because we think that the science... yeah, so we don't want to control what's going on in the science community, because we think that the science community knows better what is good for science and what the society needs. Maybe we can help a little bit with this societal needs aspect of PhD studies and education system in general. And Tomi was actually already discussing the issue of what do you want to do when you grow up. If you want to be a scientist within an academic community here in Finland or elsewhere, it's of course crucial that the work you do at the early phase of your career is something that the other ones respect and they recognize it, and that you can build on the work you do. But if you have other goals in your life, if you want to serve the government, for example, some PhDs do that. If you want to serve the public service system in healthcare, in social services, there's plenty of opportunities. But this has not been very tempting to our PhDs. And this is one of the reasons why we have the phenomenon actually currently, and that has been recognized, that there's a lot of young researchers in universities not satisfied with what they do. They don't have salary, they don't have grants or short period, and one after another. But there's a lot of other things to do in this world with your PhD than doing research. And as for the actual question to the rest of the panel was that what is the reason behind the high median age of thesis defendants, and it's a historical reason. We were not in a position before that we had to think of these issues. When I defended my thesis 25 years ago, there was 500 of us that year getting their PhD. Now it's 4 times that high number. And I'd like to come back to the qualifications that are needed for PhD, because it's totally up to the university to decide what is enough for a PhD, thesis-wise and otherwise. And we don't share the view that quality equals quantity here. But you can do high quality work, do a little bit less of it before you get your PhD, and you can continue after that. I don't know whether I answered any of the questions that you were
Thank you very much. So before we go ahead, does the audience, anyone in the audience has any kind of comments on this specific issue of the long resolution times before we go ahead? Yes, please.
Okay, so I'd like to ask,
I'll just give you a mic.
is there a difference between men and women? For example, has maternity leaves have been recognized in this calculation?
No. So the leaves, including maternity leaves, have been omitted from this data that was showed. So it is literally the amount of time you spent in the lab doing your research. Any other comments? Any other questions? Yes, please.
I would actually like to clarify about the numbers concerning the University of Helsinki, because I do not think that even at the doctoral school level we can actually get the net time.
It's difficult.
Time.
So
Because what we do know is from people who are in employment, but we do not know of the time actually spent on technical studies. So what we do have is the overall time taken from the start of the.
So the data